The Galactic Council chamber was a cathedral of light, its walls carved from living crystal, reflecting starlight across 1,000 alien delegates. Empires older than humanity itself sat in silence, their voices muted the moment a single world appeared on the holographic star map. Earth. It glowed in crimson. Not a planet under protection, not a planet under treaty, not even a planet marked for conquest. Just one word beside its name, etched in every chart, every record: untouchable. For centuries, the galaxy had abided by this unspoken law. Dozens of empires had risen and fallen in the time Earth remained untouched. Like a candle in the dark, no one dared snuff out. Some whispered it was cursed. Others believed the humans were extinct, the planet left to rot. And yet, the warning endured. A silence heavier than gravity pressed over the chamber. Then, the quiet broke. "They're just myths," sneered Commander Xylan of the Vorloth Dominion, his carapace gleaming under the chamber's light. He rose, mandibles clicking with disdain as his long claw pointed toward the glowing sphere of Earth. "Centuries of superstition have blinded you. If no fleet has ever returned, it is because they were weak, not because Earth is strong." Gasps echoed from the delegates. Some hissed, some trembled. A few even turned their heads away, as if the mere mention of violating Earth's silence was sacrilege. An elder, cloaked in silken robes, rasped from across the chamber, "Commander, there are warnings older than memory. Records, erased from our archives. Earth was marked long before even my people walked the stars." But Xylan only laughed. "Then it is perfect. A jewel unclaimed, a resource untapped, a world primitive and defenseless. My fleet will seize it, and the Vorloth Dominion shall break this pathetic superstition once and for all." The chamber erupted in arguments. Some shouted in protest, their voices trembling with fear. Others muttered in curiosity, wondering if the young commander might prove the legends false. But no one stood in his way. Not one dared to follow, yet not one dared to stop him either. The star map shifted, magnifying the small blue orb that had lived in silence for so long. Clouds swirled over green continents and deep blue oceans. To Xylan, it looked weak. Beautiful, yes, but fragile, like prey that had never known the predator's claw. "Look at it," Xylan mocked, gesturing at Earth's quiet surface. "No planetary shields, no orbital fleets, not even a warning beacon. It is abandoned, ripe for the taking." The elder's eyes glowed dimly, sadness etched into every wrinkle. "Not abandoned," he whispered, "guarded by something far older than you can imagine." Xylan ignored him. His voice rose, booming through the chamber. "By this time tomorrow, Earth will kneel beneath the Dominion, and when I return, you will see how hollow your fears truly are." His words lingered, arrogant and sharp, as the chamber fell into uneasy silence. The star map dimmed. Delegates filed out, their hushed murmurs rippling like shadows. Some spoke of foolish pride, some of inevitable doom. A few prayed in orbit around a distant star. Xylan's fleet prepared to move. Dozens of warships glimmered in the void, engines flaring, weapons primed. Crews marched in perfect rhythm, their voices singing songs of conquest. None of them saw the way their elders looked away, unable to watch. For the galaxy knew something Xylan did not. The warnings had never been superstition. They had been survival. And as the Vorloth fleet bent their course toward Earth, as the silent planet turned under its gentle blue skies, one truth became clear. Earth had been left untouched, not because it was weak, but because the galaxy remembered what happened the last time someone tried. The void rippled with fire as the Vorloth Dominion fleet tore across the stars, engines burning like suns. Dozens of warships glided in formation, their metallic hulls glimmering with predatory sheen. Each one was armed to crush cities in seconds, their weapons arrays bristling with energy. Commander Xylan stood tall at the bridge of his flagship, the Vorax's mandibles curled in smug satisfaction. Through the panoramic viewport, Earth came into view, turning slowly against the black canvas of space. A fragile orb of blue and green, soft clouds swirling like silk across its face, so small, so unguarded. The fleet's shadows stretched long as they eclipsed the moon. Below, Earth's night side sparkled with lights, millions of them, scattered across continents like constellations brought to ground. Pathetic, Xylan muttered. They waste energy on lights instead of shields. They build cities instead of weapons. This world has no concept of war on a galactic scale. The crew laughed nervously, but not all of them. The weapons officer's claws tapped uneasily against his console, mandibles twitching. His eyes darted to the readings flooding across his screen. Commander, he said cautiously, our scans detect unusual interference. Xylan turned, irritation flashing across his armored face. Interference. The officer's frill twitched. Yes, Commander. The planet emits no active defenses, but there are anomalous signals. Pockets of energy across the atmosphere, scattered. Like he hesitated, like storms that never move. Another officer chimed in. Communications are disrupted. Sensors return static when directed at certain coordinates. It's as if something is blinding us. Xylan bared his teeth in a cruel grin. Tricks, atmospheric anomalies. Primitive worlds are full of them. Nothing more. But the unease spread like a whisper through the bridge. Beyond the viewport, Earth remained silent. No fleets rose to meet them. No missiles fired into orbit. No planetary shields shimmered. Just the hum of oceans, the slow crawl of clouds, and the faint glimmer of cities that seemed blissfully unaware of what hung above them. And yet, every officer felt it. A weight in their chests, a pressure in their minds, the sensation of being watched. The fleet descended lower, their vast hulls casting shadows over Earth's surface. From orbit, they could see the curves of continents, mountain ranges cutting like scars across the land, storms swirling in endless fury overseas. The helm officer whispered under his breath, "It feels like the planet is alive, staring at us." Xylan silenced him with a glare. "Enough. This world is ripe for the taking. Ready the forward batteries. Let this primitive species witness the power of the Dominion." Engines rumbled. Warships aligned. The fleet's weapons arrays glowed with rising power. Neon veins spreading across their hulls like the blood of giants. Still, Earth did not move. No distress signals. No calls for aid. No defenses activated. Just silence. On the bridge, the tension grew unbearable. The weapons officer's mandibles quivered as he spoke again. "Commander, permission to record these anomalies. If the archives are correct." Xylan's claws slammed against the console. "There are no curses. There are no legends. Only weaklings too afraid to take what is theirs. And I will not be counted among them." He raised his claw. "All ships to fire." The words fell like a blade across the crew. Officers swallowed their fear, hands trembling as they armed the weapons. The glow of the fleet's firepower lit the void, a storm of destruction ready to rain down on a defenseless world. And still, Earth only watched. The shadows of alien ships stretched across its oceans and mountains, smothering the planet in darkness. Yet the silence remained, heavy, patient, waiting. Commander Xylan grinned, fangs gleaming in the light of charging cannons. "Let the galaxy witness the end of this superstition," he said. Below, the clouds shifted, the winds changed, as if the world itself had heard him. The fleet's cannons burned like miniature suns, their glow casting jagged shadows across the bridges of every warship. The void itself seemed to pulse, as if recoiling from the power about to be unleashed. Commander Xylan stood tall at the center. Of the Vorax's mandibles spread in triumph. His claws hovered above the firing control, Every eye on the bridge fixed upon him. "Mark the target," he ordered. On the screens, a coastal city appeared, millions of lights glimmering along the curve of the shoreline, skyscrapers rising like teeth into the night sky. An easy demonstration of Dominion power. "Ready batteries?" Xylan barked. "Batteries primed," the weapons officer replied, his voice strained, mandibles quivering. Xylan sneered. "Fire." The void erupted. From a dozen warships, beams of plasma and volleys of warheads screamed downward, blazing a trail of annihilation. To the eyes of the fleet, it was already over. The city below would be nothing but ash and ruin within seconds. But then, it vanished. Not the city, not the people, the fire. The beams flickered as they pierced the upper atmosphere, then dissolved into glowing vapor, scattering like mist in the wind. Warheads tumbled, as if struck by invisible walls, their detonations snuffed out in silence. On the bridge, officers scrambled. The tactical screens showed nothing. No shields, no counterweapons, just empty sky swallowing their attack whole. "Impact." "Confirmed," Xylan demanded. The weapons officer's voice cracked. "Commander, there was no impact." Xylan snapped around. "Explain." The officer's frills flattened, eyes wide in disbelief. The planet absorbed the fire, as if the atmosphere itself devoured the weapons. The energy simply ceased to exist. Silence gripped the bridge. Even the hum of the engines seemed muted, as though the planet itself had silenced the noise. Mandibles curled into a snarl. Malfunction. It must be. But the crew exchanged terrified glances. Malfunctions did not happen across an entire fleet. Malfunctions did not make fire vanish into mist. A second officer whispered, almost too softly to hear. "It's as if the sky rejected us." Then, the comms erupted with static. Not ordinary statics, something deeper, resonant, like voices whispering. Through the interference, dozens of voices, overlapping, speaking in tongues no translation systems could process. Every console flickered. Images of storms filled the screens, lightning frozen mid-strike, hurricanes spiraling, but never moving. Warnings, signs. The crew trembled. One by one, their claws and hands drifted from their stations, as if instinct screamed louder than their commander's orders. Xylan slammed his claw against the console. "You will hold your posts." This is a trick. A trick. But even he felt it now. The weight in the air. The sense that the planet was not merely a sphere of rock and water, but something awake. Something aware, below. The coastal city still glowed, untouched, lights twinkling like stars against the black canvas of night. The people had not even noticed the strike attempt. They lived their lives beneath the silence, unaware that the galaxy's most powerful weapons had just been erased above their heads. Xylan bared his fangs. "Ready another volley. Double the power. I will not be mocked by a ball of dirt." His voice echoed through the bridge, but the order rang hollow. The crew obeyed yet. Their eyes were wide, their hands trembling as they set the weapons again. Because now they knew. The planet was not defenseless. It was choosing not to answer, and that silence was worse than fire. The Vorloth fleet hung in silence above Earth, weapons still smoldering from their failed barrage. The void, once alive with the crackle of fire, was now eerily still. On the bridge of the Voraxis, Commander Xylan's mandibles twitched with rage. "Recalibrate the weapons. We fire again." But before the order could be carried out, the ship's consoles flickered. One screen went black, then another, then all of them. "Commander, our systems," the comms officer stammered, claws racing over the controls. But the darkness on the screens wasn't empty. Slowly, shapes emerged, faces. Human faces. Not the smooth, familiar visages of the present, but ancient, lined with war paint, and shadowed by helmets of iron, leather, and bone. A warrior in furs, another in bronze armor, a knight with rusted steel, visor cracked but eyes burning beneath. The images shimmered like ghosts, Their lips moved, and the bridge filled with sound. Not static, not mechanical interference. Voices. Dozens. Hundreds. Speaking in languages none of the crew recognized. Guttural chants. Whispered prayers. Cries of battle. Each word layered over the next, until the ship seemed to groan under the weight of them. Translator engaged. Barked the comms officer, frantically keying commands. But the system only shrieked in return, lines of code spiraling before collapsing into one phrase, repeated over and over. We are remembered. The crew froze. Their frills and mandibles quivered as the voices grew louder, circling the bridge like predators in the dark. Then the images sharpened. Warriors marched across the screen's rows of human soldiers through mud and blood. Shields clashing, spears thrust forward. Others charged with muskets, sabers gleaming in smoke-choked skies. Tanks rolled through ruined cities. Soldiers in gas masks moved like shadows through poison clouds. The visions were not clean, not sanitized. They were raw flesh torn, faces screaming. The chaos of endless struggle, and through it all, one truth bled through. Humanity had never stopped fighting. Silence snarled, clenching his claws. Hallucinations, primitive psychological warfare. Ignore it. But his own words wavered as one image locked onto him, a soldier, clad in tattered armor, face streaked with mud and ash. The man's eyes glowed faintly, too sharp, too knowing, and he spoke not in an alien tongue, but in perfect Vorlithy. Leave. The bridge fell silent. Every crew member froze. The air itself felt heavier, as if pressing down on their chests. Then, across every ship in the fleet, alarms blared. Communications lit up with the same images, the same voices. Warriors from every age of human history filled the decks, their mouths moving in unison. We are remembered. Some officers tore their headsets off, shrieking. Others fell back from their stations, clutching their temples as the whispers slithered into their minds. The science officer's voice cracked. Commander, these signals are not transmissions. They're emanating from the planet itself, not from machines, from somewhere deeper. It's as if the very soil is speaking. A sudden chill swept the bridge, like a breath of winter air. The holographic star map sparked to life on its own, displaying Earth. But this time, the continents were not green and blue. They were red, covered in rivers of blood. Xylan's mandibles spread wide in defiance, but a shiver ran through him, despite his pride. He roared above the growing chorus. Do not falter. They are nothing but echoes of the past. They cannot harm us. Yet his crew was no longer convinced. They had seen the fire vanish. Now they heard the dead speaking. And deep in their bones, they knew echoes that survived this long were never just echoes. They were warnings. The Vorlith fleet trembled in silence. The voices had faded, but the weight of them lingered, echoing in the bones of every officer. Commander Xylan stood rigid on the bridge, his claws digging into the armrests of his command throne. His crew avoided his gaze, whispering prayers or clutching their consoles like lifelines. The atmosphere felt thick, like standing on the edge of a storm that had not yet broken. Enough of this madness, Xylan growled, forcing steel into his voice. Prepare for full-scale bombardment. Level the surface until nothing remains. The weapons officer hesitated, mandibles quivering. Commander, if the planet is interfering with our strikes again, do it, Xylan roared. The fleet obeyed. Dozens of warships lit up the night side of Earth, their cannons flaring as storms of plasma and warheads screamed toward the planet. The void burned brighter than a sunrise as annihilation poured downward, and then the planet answered. It did not deflect. It did not shield. It did not remain silent. The oceans erupted first. From the depths of the Atlantic, titanic columns of light speared upward, tearing through the void like blades of fire. Entire battleships disintegrated as the beams punched through their hulls, scattering molten fragments into orbit. Mountains followed, peaks split open, glowing veins of energy surging skyward. They twisted into tendrils of lightning that lashed across the fleet, wrapping holes in white-hot fire until they burst. The sky itself rebelled. Clouds ignited with auroras, shimmering ribbons of impossible color that seared through ship plating like it was paper. On the bridge of the Voraxis, crew screamed as panels sparked, the air thick with ozone. "Commander," the science officer cried, his voice cracking. "These are not weapons, this is the planet itself. The energy signatures, they're alive." The word struck harder than any beam. Alive. Xylan staggered to the viewport, mandibles wide in disbelief. The earth glowed beneath them, its oceans blazing with light, its mountains pulsing like veins of a great slumbering heart. The fleet fired again, in desperation. Missiles launched, plasma beams tore through the void. Each one met the same fate, consumed by Earth's fury, dissolved into the storm of living energy. One ship tried to retreat. Engines flared, clawing for escape. But the seas rose in answer, hurling a spear of light that ripped through the vessel, splitting it in two. The wreckage spun into the upper atmosphere, burning like a falling star dot. All across the fleet, voices rose in terror. "It's not possible. No world has this kind of power, none. We should never have come." On the star map, the glowing columns of energy etched themselves into symbols, vast ancient runes spanning entire continents. They pulsed in rhythm, like the heartbeat of something immeasurable. "Watching, waiting," the science officer whispered, barely audible. "It's not defense, it's retaliation. The planet itself is alive with memory, with will." The words chilled even Xylan. For the first time, his pride faltered. His mandibles clicked nervously, his claws tightening around the armrest, as if it alone kept him tethered to control. But the truth was undeniable. Earth had not been silent out of fear, it had been silent out of choice. And now it had awakened. The bridge shuddered, as another column of light lanced past the Voraxis, close enough to rattle its bones. Xylan's crew stared at him, their eyes wide, waiting for orders that no longer mattered. The commander tried to sneer, tried to summon words of defiance, but all he could manage was a whisper, drowned beneath the roar of the awakening world. The Vorloth fleet was in ruins. Where dozens of warships had once filled the void, only a scattered handful remained smoldering, broken, their hulls scarred by Earth's wrath. The silence of space was broken only by the groan of damaged ships, and the panicked cries of crew trying to hold them together. On the Voraxis, Commander Xylan clutched the rail of his command throne, his mandibles tight with disbelief. His mighty fleet, his pride was gone in minutes. "Systems report," he barked. "Shields crippled, weapons offline. Half-hour escorts destroyed," the officer stammered. His voice cracked as he added, "We cannot withstand another strike." Xylan's claws clenched. This was impossible. No world, no primitive planet should hold this power. Then the science officer gasped, "Commander, you need to see this." One of the consoles flickered to life, data streams flooding across the display. Somehow, amidst the chaos, their systems had intercepted transmissions' radiation bursts, carrying fragments of Earth's history. At first it was noise, then images formed. The bridge fell silent as Earth told its story. Explosions, blinding flashes of fire, consuming cities. Mushroom clouds clawing into the sky, leaving wastelands of ash-dot soldiers in trenches, soaked in mud and blood, charging into storms of bullets. Planes falling from the skies in flaming spirals, tanks grinding across shattered landscapes. Then, plague, corpses stacked in streets. Entire populations gasping, choking, dying, and yet, survivors always remained, always rebuilt. Another wave fires tearing through forests, earthquakes splitting the ground, tsunamis swallowing coastlines whole. Nature itself rose to destroy them, but still, they endured. The crew trembled as centuries of humanity's pain flashed before them, each scene raw, merciless civilization, after civilization burning, collapsing, and clawing its way back from ruin. They destroyed themselves. One officer whispered in awe. No, the science officer said quietly, his mandibles trembling. They survived themselves, over and over. Every time they nearly ended, they rose stronger, faster, harder. The images continued, humans planting flags on moons, building machines that roared through the skies, splitting atoms to harness power that should never have been theirs. They had not only survived catastrophe, they had mastered it. A soldier's face filled the screen, mud streaked across his cheek, eyes hollow, but burning with defiance. Another followed an astronaut, staring down the void of space. Tethered to nothing but courage, Xylan's crew recoiled as realization spread like fire. This world forged them in endless trial. The science officer whispered, every war, every plague, every disaster, they are the children of catastrophe. That is why the galaxy fears them. A deep silence followed, heavier than the void itself. The crew understood now why no one touched Earth. It was not because of its weapons, or its armies, or its technology. It was because humanity was something else entirely. Commander Xylan's pride cracked, his mandibles twitching. For the first time, he felt fear not of the planet, but of the species beneath it. Billions of humans lived below, carrying the memory of every war, every death, every victory etched into their blood. A species that learned not from peace, but from endless fire. A species that endured. The science officer turned slowly to his commander. We should never have come. For once, Xylan had no answer, and in the silence that followed, the planet pulsed again, those runes carved across continents glowing faintly, as if echoing the truth the fleet had just witnessed. Humanity was not prey. Humanity was survival, weaponized. The Vorlith fleet drifted like a wounded animal above Earth, its once proud warships reduced to smoking husks. Sparks rained across the bridge of the Voraxis, consoles flickering in and out of life. The survivors clung to their stations, their eyes wide, their courage shattered. Commander Xylan's mandibles ground together, his pride bleeding into desperation. He wanted to roar, to command, to lash out, but what weapon remained when fire itself was swallowed? What threat remained when the very planet fought back? And then, the planet spoke at first. It was static. Every com, every channel, every frequency, with noise that sent shivers crawling through the crew's frills. Then the static deepened, warped, until it carried the shape of words, human words, one voice at first, then hundreds, then thousands, layered until the fleet vibrated with the sound. Men, women, young, old, every tongue blending into one. We warned you. The bridge froze. Every officer felt it, not just in their ears but in their bones, resonating like the toll of a great bell. The holographic star map flared to life, unbidden. Earth spun at its center, glowing brighter, its countenance etched in red like scars. The oceans shimmered with auroras, curling upward as though the world itself was breathing. The voices continued. No longer whispers, but thunder. We are the children of struggle. Images burst across every screen. Soldiers charging through firestorms. Cities rebuilt from rubble. Children laughing in the shadows of ruins. Astronauts stepping into the void, their eyes reflecting distant suns. We are not prey. The words echoed across every ship, burning through every wall, every circuit, every mind. Then the screens changed. Faces filled them, millions of human faces, eyes fixed upward, unblinking. Farmers, workers, leaders, warriors, all staring directly at the fleet, as if the void itself could not veil them. On the bridge of the Voraxis, an ensign gasped. They're looking at us. One face grew larger. A woman, her expression calm, but her eyes sharp enough to pierce through armor. She spoke alone, but her voice carried the weight of all humanity. You were warned. We endure what others cannot. We rise where others fall. We break, and we return unbroken. The silence that followed was suffocating. The crew trembled, each word carved into their bones. Then the voice hardened. Leave this place. Tell your kind. We are not to be touched. The star map flared one final time. For an instant, every star around Earth dimmed, as if the entire galaxy bent to its heartbeat. The crew gasped, claws tightening on their stations. Some wept. Others bowed their heads in fear. Xylan's pride finally shattered. His claws shook as he stared at the faces on the screen. He had thought them weak, fragile, prey. But now he saw the truth. Humanity was a weapon honed by disaster, an unbreakable will forged in fire. He opened his mandibles, but no words came. His officers no longer looked at him for orders. Their eyes were locked on the faces staring back from Earth, paralyzed by the raw force of that gaze. The woman's face lingered on the screen, her eyes like burning stars. This is your only warning. Then everything went dark. The comms cut. The screens went black. Only silence remained. But it was not the silence of weakness. It was the silence of a predator, patient and certain, daring its prey to test it again. The void was silent. Not the peaceful silence of space, but the hollow quiet after a predator bares its fangs. The Vorloth, fleet what remained of it, drifted in tatters above Earth. Hulls cracked, weapons scorched, engines bleeding trails of smoke and fire. Those who survived clung to their stations, eyes hollow, hearts pounding with a fear they could not name. Commander Xylan stared at the blank screens, where moments ago, humanity's face had stared back. The echo of their words still lingered in his mind, an iron weight pressing on his chest. This is your only warning. His claws trembled against the armrests of his throne. He had seen many enemies broken, many worlds burned, but never had silence frightened him so deeply. This was not surrender. This was not mercy. This was a sentence. Commander, the navigation officer whispered, his voice shaking. Orders. Xylan opened his mandibles, but his pride had fled. The weight of survival was all that remained. Retreat, he rasped. Signal the survivors. Pull back. Now. Engines sputtered to life. The broken remnants of the fleet limped from Earth's orbit, scarred shadows fleeing a predator's den. The planet shrank behind them, but its gaze never left their minds. As distance grew, the crew dared to breathe again, but no one felt relief. Relief was for battles survived. This was something different. This was escape. The science officer, still pale beneath his frills, broke the silence. I recorded everything, he whispered. The visions, the transmissions, their history. The galaxy must know. Xylan turned to him sharply, mandibles flaring. No, the galaxy already knows. That is why Earth was left alone. That is why their name is carved on every star chart as forbidden. But Commander, silence. Xylan snapped, though his voice cracked with fear, more than fury. He looked back at the shrinking blue world. There is no victory here, only a lesson. Pass it wrongly, and others will die the same way. The science officer lowered his gaze. The crew fell into uneasy quiet as the void swallowed them. Yet every one of them knew the story would spread. Stories always did. Survivors talked, whispers grew, and legends became warnings etched into law. Behind them, Earth turned slowly in the dark, oceans gleaming, continents aglow with faint traces of those ancient runes. It did not pursue. It did not need to. The predator does not chase the prey once the message is delivered. The prey carries the message themselves. Hours later, in the shadow of a ruined battleship, a junior officer whispered to no one in particular, "Why them? Why are they like this?" The science officer answered without lifting his eyes. Because they were never allowed to rest. Every fire, every war, every death, each one sharpened them. Other species grew in peace. They grew in pain. And now, they wear that pain as armor. His mandibles clicked shut. No one argued. As the fleet limped into the dark, Commander's Island stood, watching Earth fade from view. He felt its presence still, a weight behind his eyes, a scar carved into his pride. He knew then what the galaxy had always known. No matter the power of your fleet, no matter the reach of your empire, no matter the hunger of your conquest, you never touch Earth. The void swallowed the planet from sight, but its legend remained, burning brighter than any star. The humans endured. The humans survived. The humans will never fall.